Hello everybody, welcome to It Was Tuesday, and it is time to destroy Exerd with your host James Chen, aka Jay Chenzor. No, we're not going to destroy Exerd. We're just talking about an article that was posted up by Dexerto recently, where they actually had a chance to try to talk to Daisuke about, what their philosophy was for creating Guilty Gear Strive. And, in typical content creation, clickbait faction. And by the way, one time I was thinking about clickbait and stuff like that. And if you guys have never seen the old school website called superdickery.com, which was one of the greatest websites ever, which was all about Superman being a dick to everybody, there was just covers of like Jimmy Olsen in the desert, like I need water, Superman, you have so much water. And Superman's just pouring water into the sand. He's like, no, I don't think you need this water, Jimmy. Stuff like that. I came to the realization that comic books were like the first clickbait, right? Like, honestly, like the covers were always so messed up. They actually try to get you to like read the comic by telling you something that like literally wasn't happening in the comic at all. But comic books like, oh no, what happened? Wolverine is dead. What happened? And then Wolverine like doesn't die or anything. Comic books were the first clickbait now that I think about it, which actually makes me laugh here. But the article from Dexerto, the headline is Guilty Gear Strive's creators had to destroy past games to keep series alive. And, it really got people talking about this, because they're like, what? And in the article, you should read it yourselves here. If I remember to, I'll try to put the link to the article in the description here. I'll put the link in the chat for all of you guys here. But basically, I'm trying to find like the crucial sentences here. Guilty Gear creator Daisuke Ishiwatari had told us he'd been planning to bring back the franchise for several years. Even years after its initial 2020 release, the game is still a massive hit amongst fighting game players. But little do they know that the title was a much-needed refresher for the Guilty Gear franchise. And so, one of the things it says, Guilty Gear devs wanted Strive to destroy Exerd. Basically claiming that their goal was to break Exerd with Strive's improvements. And the quote here is, the decisive difference between Strive and Exerd is that Strive was made to destroy Exerd, Ishiwatari told us. In that sense, we were trying to make Exerd as an example of failure. Of course, it wasn't a failure, but we had to change the direction completely. We had to be prepared for that. And then game director Akira Katano also chimed in, explained that the team is focusing on their broader player base outside of Japan with Strive. And Katano says, what we originally created came from a very limited worldview because we were focused more on our Japanese player base. And then he goes on to say, with Strive, this is what our American division was born. And with Strive, we really wanted to expand our perspective and our field of view to the entire world. One of the things that they had said very, very early on in Strive was that they weren't trying to simplify the game. They weren't trying to dumb the game down. But what they were really trying to do was basically to eliminate the legacy knowledge, was to try to create a way for the game to, appeal to newcomers so that it wasn't just like, the people coming into the game who had the experience were just going to be easily, beating everybody. And they talk about this a little bit. And they say there was a lot of risk involved in making that giant leap with Guilty Gear Strive. We really thought about, what are our longtime fans going to think when we do this, when we go in this new direction? Yes, there were a lot of risks, but I think it paid off. And we have an even bigger audience now that we took the leap. Right? And so, they talked about a lot of this, and it really started the conversation. And, there is definitely a very strong contingent of Exerd fans out there who really, really despise Strive a lot. And it's pretty crazy, to be honest with you. As a person who comes from Street Fighter, I appreciate the idea of resetting your game and doing something completely different with it. And I think that's what they did. And, you can argue whether it was successful or not. Obviously, it has the largest player base of any Guilty Gear ever. So there's a lot of success there. But, one of the biggest complaints about this, and kind of what spurred a lot of the conversation we had a couple of weeks ago about execution and depth and stuff, Strive tried to simplify a lot of things down, make the game a little bit more approachable and easier to play, because they didn't want to maintain, because like a lot of things that they maintained in Guilty Gear were bugs, right? Like for example, Faust and Chip being able to faultless defense cancel their jump moves, so that they changed the jump arc. So Faust doing the instant jumping, overheads, or Chip dashing and running over, flying over you, and then just dropping straight down with the faultless defense cancels and stuff like that. Jump installs, all of those things were actually bugs that were basically turned into features, right? They were bugs in the XX games that, once they went to Exerd, they intentionally maintained. Once they went to Strive, they took a lot of that away. They took away the freedom of the Gatlings, for example. They tried to limit what you are able to do, etc., etc. A lot of the characters lost, big chunks of their movesets, so that they were definitely a lot simpler. Milia didn't have the hairpin anymore, for example. Chip doesn't have the teleport anymore. They really tried to change the way a lot of the characters ended up playing. And yeah, they did simplify the game a lot, but, the real question that comes down to right now is, does the game still feel like a Guilty Gear? And this is the really interesting conversation that kind of sprung out of this whole entire thing when I was talking to people online. Because for a long time, Guilty Gear heads, they will tell you that Strive has destroyed everything that Guilty Gear is about. Like, this game doesn't even feel like a Guilty Gear anymore. Excuse me. I drank that water way too fast. So they're arguing that the game doesn't feel like Guilty Gear. Holy crap. If I forgot to edit that part out, I'm sorry. Apologies. Okay, anyways, they said that the game doesn't feel like Guilty Gear at all anymore. And I think that that's crazy. I actually think that's crazy. Because it still feels like Guilty Gear to me. Is it different? Yes. But it still feels like Guilty Gear. Now, I'm not going to blame Guilty Gear fans for thinking that Strive just feels like another universe. Like, what the heck is this at all? Because the thing about it is, up until Strive, Guilty Gear has been a legacy franchise, like Tekken. The game doesn't change. It changes, but it doesn't change. Because a lot of things that you were supposed to be able to do with your characters, like the jump 2K faultless defense cancels with Faust, those kind of the jump install combos with Chip, those kind of things were all maintained. And so as a result, a lot of times you could jump from one game to the next game and, like, oh, okay, I need to learn how this new thing works. But for the most part, you could do a lot of old stuff in the game. So the fact that Strive is changed a lot is a system shock. It is a shock to the system because they've never had to deal with this before, And one of the people I was talking to online was like, dude, like, the air dashes are slower, you're limited in your Gatlings, the Roman cancels don't act the same, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, you know what? You still have Gatlings. You still have air dash. You still have burst. You still have double jumps. It's still Guilty Gear. It is absolutely still Guilty Gear. And, the argument always is like, well, Street Fighter, yeah, sure, it changes, but at least fundamentally it's still the same. And you're just like, dude, like, you don't play Street Fighter. Like, you don't play Street Fighter because, you go from Alpha 3 to Third Strike, and, like, you cannot ask for two more different fighting games. Right? And you go from MKX to MK11. You just go from MKX to MK11 to MK1. Those 3 games, they're nothing the same. They are nothing the same. And the point that I made to them was, you're too ingrained in the scene, basically. So I was like, let me tell you about Smash players. If you talk to any Smash player, Melee, Brawl, Smash Wii U, and, maybe not Smash Wii U to Ultimate, because those are similar, but specifically Melee, Brawl to Smash Wii U are like 3 of the most different games you could possibly have, according to Smash players. They play completely different. They're not even remotely similar. And, if you're coming from the outside, you're like, they all look exactly the goddamn same, dude. Like, what the hell are you talking about? And so, when you're in the scene, you obviously, you're like, oh my God, this is so crazy. It's like wildly different. But when you're coming from the outside, you have a little more perspective. Or if you just are understanding that the games aren't as different as you think they are, you realize that there's more similarities than you think. Like, I might be a little biased because I'm a Potemkin player, and, obviously Potemkin has never been one to really go ham on system mechanics, but going from Exert to Strive Potemkin really isn't that different, right? And yeah, okay, so that's another point, not a con. I'll get to let's just talk about it right now. Why do people want the same game anyway? If you want Exert, go play Exert. And that's exactly what Daisuke was saying, right? They have said it many times, like, Exert is still there to play. And then Arxis did the unthinkable and ported Rollback back to Exert. So the question is, why do you want to make the same game? And let's face it, Exert is not in a position where it feels like it's aging. Like, I've said it before, Exert is a game that is never going to look old. It's never going to look old. And yeah, that's true too, Forrest. People want to play the current version because that's the version that's going to be at EVO. That's the version that's going to be at CEO. That's the version that's going to be at Arc World Tour. So they want their game to be able to have those kind of extra benefits. And that is the argument, honestly, of why you want your game to play exactly the same. But the thing about it is Exert is still there, and you can still play Exert, and they put rollback into it. And you know what? Exert, and like I said, fighting games are not dead. Stop talking about dead games. There's a wonderful, wonderful Exert scene out there. Go find Pat the Flip, and he will lead you to the giant Exert scene out there still grinding this game to this day, because they do love the game, and they don't enjoy playing Strive, and that's fine. That's fine. You don't have to enjoy playing Strive. But the problem is, a lot of these people are like, Strive sucks. It's a horrible game, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, it's not for you. But it's still fun. It has more players than ever, and these guys are pretty dedicated to the game. Yeah, Irene's running a tournament right now. And a lot of people are like, well, Strive simplified everything down, but that's not even necessarily true either, right? Like, one of the big differences that I don't know why people don't talk about more, but Strive changed the game so that late cancels were a thing. They basically turned it more Marvel-esque, in which anytime a move hits, as long as it's recovering, you can cancel it now. Can't cancel it on whiff, but if I hit you with a button, I don't have to cancel it right away. I can delay it, whether this is a Gatling or whether this is a special move cancel or even a jump cancel. In original Guilty Gears, the cancels only happened on hit, on those few frames. So in other words, A beautiful example of this is Biken. So before, if Biken ran up and did crouching light kick, and then you wanted to, no, if she did close strong, if she did dash up close slash, she could either go into sweep or she could jump cancel it and go into Yozen-san, right? Which was an instant overhead. The problem was the cancel timing of the stand slash into the sweep has no variation. So it has to be slash sweep. And the jump cancel had to be later. You had to be slash jump cancel Yozen-san. It was 100% fuzzyable. So if you block close standing slash, you low blocked, and then after the window in which she could chain into the sweep, you just stood up. And there was nothing Biken could do about that. You could just fuzzy that mix up 100% of the time. In Strive now, because you can late cancel, I can do close slash, and now I can wait, and look, close slash will start recovering and then cancel into sweep. Or I can cancel slash into Yozen-san so that the two hit basically at the same timing. So now it's actually a true mix-up. It's actually a true mix-up at that point. So again, the late cancels have changed a lot and they've added a lot to the game. Now, obviously, this does make it so that the game feels a little more, it feels a little more dicey, because now it really does feel more a little bit along the lines of now it's kind of gone towards the Street Fighter V guessing game-ish kind of thing, where now the mix-ups are unfuzzyable, so it's really just like, shit, what do I do? Help kind of thing. But as you can see, as the game goes along, they keep adding more mechanics to try to help you get out of those situations. But the thing about it is it's opened a lot. And so if you actually go, you can actually frame trap a lot more. You see a lot more situations where people will attack, wait, and then late cancel into Bandit Bringer or late cancel into something so that they can actually frame trap you and catch you pressing buttons and stuff like that. It's actually kind of expanded that little mix-up game, and they even used it in their system. For example, there's the reels in Strive that, like, for example, Soul's close slash, when you punch someone, you punch them in the stomach and they fly up into the air and fall back on their feet. Like they go, "Pwhoa," and then they land back on their feet. If you cancel the move right away, the next hit punches them out of the air because you plop them up and you get to do a launcher combo. If you wait and cancel late after they land back on their feet, you can cancel into the same move, but now they're on the ground and you can keep a ground combo going. So there's a little bit of expansion there. Also, the combos are a little bit more, you're able to find different routes now because now you can late cancel things. And anyone who's played Marvel and knows about late canceling, that helps expand your combo paths a lot. And so a lot of people are like, oh, there's no depth in Strive or whatever like that, or the Gatling system sucks. Now think about the Gatling system, right? What if the Gatling system was the full Gatling system before? Punch, kick, slash, heavy slash into like forward heavy slash. Dude, the game would just become frame trap the game. Short, I would dash up, you go jab, short, strong, slash, a heavy slash, a towards heavy slash. So I would just throw out 5 like frame traps in a row. Dude, the game would suck. The game would actually be sucky because everybody would just be frame trapping with these super long Gatling chains now, right? Right now, the most you can usually get is like slash, close slash, far heavy slash. And like, that's kind of like the best you can get. If you had that full chain system, the Gatling system that it had, and I bet you it was like this at one point, that you would just sit there and just be like, frame trap, frame trap, frame trap, frame trap, frame trap, and you just be, oh my God, like the whole game would just be sitting there trying to call out frame traps all day. And I don't think that would be particularly exciting. Now, the question is, why did they do that? Why did they add it this way? Why didn't they just leave it the way it was? Well, that is actually a different question, and it's clearly the reason why they did the late cancel ability was because they wanted to add more visual flair to the game. So the counter hits slow the game down. There's more slow motion. There's freezing. Counter, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff like that. Would have been too easy to option select that. As soon as the game came out on beta, that's the first thing I tried. See if I could counter hit option select. But the reason why it doesn't work is because if there's no counter hit, if I hit you with a fierce, and then the timing of the counter hit, I cancel into the special move, I'll still cancel into the special move. And so now if I have a special move that's completely unsafe but does a lot of damage, I can't option select that anymore. Because if I hit the button, it goes counter, and I just do the counter hit timing option select, I'll still cancel. So they added the late cancel to eliminate a lot of the ability to option select using those slow motion stuff. Otherwise, it would have been too easy to do that. So, you know, it all kind of went around there, but in the end, it created a kind of a little bit more of a complex system. And again, it just depends on where you stand, because clearly it could also accidentally force you into a situation where, like I said, people think the game might be a little bit too much of a rock, paper, scissors, you know, because you can late cancel and frame trap people so easily, etc., etc. But my whole point is that there's more to the game than, you know, when you see something taken away or when you see something added, there's more to it than you might think, right? Oh my God, Nathan's still trying to get into my chicken bones over here. There's more to it than you think. And again, is Strive simpler than Exert? Yeah, clearly. Like it'll take you way longer to get good at your character in Exert than you can in Strive. But that's why you keep playing Exert. That's why you keep playing Exert, right? I mean, it would be crazy if one day that, dude, I actually think that Strive would be miserable without the dash macro. Drift RC would be such a pain in the ass. Oh my God. But I really do think, I mean, it would be actually sick if Arxis one year was like, hey, let's put Exert and Strive into the Arc World Tour. That would actually be really sick if they actually did that. I want to see if they're bold enough to do that. I think that would be so cool. Yeah, and then what the hell? Just put plus R in there as well. Yeah, okay, and that's another thing too, King9999. Obviously, I would rather have the devs to be able to make the game they want and not be beholden to their hardcore fans. Obviously, they want to keep the hardcore fans, but you know, they said, like, how will the veterans feel about this, right? There was a lot of risk involved in making that giant leap. We really thought about what are our longtime fans going to think when we do this, when we go this new direction. So, you know, obviously they got to think about that. You know, they want to keep them, but obviously they know that their goal was to bring about a bigger audience. Daisuke did, and the team did a lot of things with Exert that with Strive that I've been thinking about in fighting games for a long time. Creating better presentation for audiences, you know, really kind of questioning the use of the corner and the camera angles for the corner and stuff like that. You know, and like I said, they keep adding more mechanics, although I really, 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 really wish that the wild assaults didn't cause hard knockdowns on wall breaks. I really dislike that. I really, really dislike it. I preferred it when you had to spend supers to get the hard knockdown, because otherwise the wall break, I mean, it is just a corner, because everybody just gets wild assault and the safe jump, and you might as well just have stayed in the corner, right? Like, what was the point of you breaking through the wall in the first place? So, you know, I would like them to take that part away. That's something that I would like them to patch. But again, the game is going to keep changing. They're going to keep patching it. Season 4, I'm sure, is going to add some more stuff. And yeah, you want to create new fans. You have to create new fans, like King9999 in the chat says. You know, and that's the thing. And here's another thing. People don't remember how mad at Exert a lot of XX fans were. The conversations that I have with some Exert fans about, like, Strive is a good game, and they're like, no, it's not, is basically the same conversations that I had with Mike Z when Exert came out. I was like, Mike Z, why are you playing Exert? He's like, game sucks. And I was like, dude, the game is really good. And he was like, no, it's not. They dumbed this game down. It's so scrubby. The new Roman cancels are stupid. Like, Mike Z refused to play Exert. He hated that game. A lot of XX players hated Exert. They were so mad at like how, quote, dumbed down the game was, you know? Like a lot of things didn't feel the same to them anymore. All the dust combos were like a lot easier to do and all this stuff. And, you know, it's just like people are saying, it's the circle of life in fighting games. And so keep in mind, you know, Exert being as loved as it is now, right now, you know, took a while to get to that point, and it built its own fan base. And now Exert is super beloved, and the same thing is going to happen to Strive. And Strive may have a giant fan base at some point. And sure, when Guilty Gear Vivid comes out, that I joked, that's what I joked it will be called in the future. When Guilty Gear Vivid comes out, you know, there will still be a lot of people who love Strive, and they're going to hate Guilty Gear Vivid. Like, that's just the way it's going to happen, you know? But honestly, Strive is really in a good place. What the devs intended it to be, the game that they wanted to make, is what they had. And this is the theme of like these past couple of weeks. Let the devs make the game that they want to make and judge it by those merits. We're not going to judge Granblue Versus by the merits of it not being a complicated game. I mean, yes, Strive comes from Exert. Exert's complex, Strive less so. But should we judge it? Are the devs beholden to legacy? I think Tekken needs a shakeup. I don't think the heat mechanic was the right way to do it because the rest of the game is exactly the same. Like, I feel like Tekken needs a bigger shakeup. And I like the fact that that Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter are willing to change. Although a Mortal Kombat fan did point out to me that their game changes every 2 years. And I was like, okay, you're right, that's too much. Like, if they changed every 6 years, like a lot of other games, okay, cool. But for MK fans, the fact that it changes every 2 years is kind of annoying, honestly. But, you know, I don't think the devs are beholden to trying to maintain legacy. And if their goal is to get a bigger audience, which they've done, and now more people know about Guilty Gear, who was it in the chat that actually said that they went from Strive to the old Guilty Gears, right? They went from Strive to the old Guilty Gears. So Strive, and you know what? Some of these players might go back to the old Guilty Gears and go, whoa, these are way better than Strive. They wouldn't have gotten there without Strive. So you can't say that Strive is hurting the scene. It's introducing more people to Guilty Gear. More people will play Guilty Gear, and as a result, they may discover Exert or XX, right? You might get them going backwards. That happens a lot. So again, you know, when the devs said they wanted to destroy Exert, you know, what they were just saying is that Exert didn't increase the fan base. Exert, the reason why they had to treat it as a failure was they had to think about what can we do to actually increase the fan base. And that's what they did. They created a new game and they increased the fan base. They were successful on that. And I think that's admirable. I think that's something to really look into. Now, I haven't been meaning to ignore Little Akiba Games' stuff here. He says, it's a really difficult balance between refreshing the competitive landscape and respecting the investment players have made in learning their characters. Guilty Gear doesn't have it nearly as bad as, say, Virtua Fighter, though. Sega has really put themselves in a position where they have to toe the line or else alienate their audience. The only time Guilty Gear hit that kind of status quo was that long stretch of inactivity between Plus R and Exert. Yeah, Virtua Fighter is going to be a tough one, but I think Virtua Fighter it's been so long that I think that they do have the opportunity to to reinvent itself in a lot of ways. And if anything, you know, really what Virtua Fighter needs is a fresh coat of paint. I always just felt like the game was one of the prettier looking games, but it's very straightforward. You know, the thing that made Tekken 7 popular was the slow motions and all the crazy effects and stuff. And that's something that Virtua Fighter really needs to look into if they make a Virtua Fighter 6. They have to make it so that it's very easy to understand for the people watching to know what's going on, right? To know what's going on. For example, like the throw break system in Virtua Fighter is very detailed. Like, it would be really cool that if you ever broke a throw, after the throw is broken, it actually tells you which throw was broken, right? So that viewers will, when we're watching it and we see, you know, throws broken, you know, you see, oh, it was the down throw that was broken. Oh, it was the forward throw it was the back throw that was broken. Or when you actually get punishes or counter hits, there should be a message on the screen that says punish or counter hit. Obviously, the thing is they don't want people to confirm off of that. That's an easy problem to fix. If I hit someone with a counter hit, just don't make the counter hit sign pop up right away. Delay it for half a second. Like, that kills all confirmability and half a second of the message going, wing. Like, everyone can see it. You can't confirm off of it because it automatically is delayed. Like, not a problem here, but it makes it so that people can actually watch it. And I think that that's really, really important. Continuing with Little Occupant Games, he typed a lot, so that's why I'm addressing some of the stuff he's talking about. I don't want to make it so that he typed for nothing here. I also think there's a conversation to be had about what a revolving door the competitive scene has become and how that might be flaring up a lot of that resentment because people know what's going to happen to their favorite games when the next installment comes out. Yeah, that used to be the old case until Arxis put rollback in Exerd. They really blew that apart. But you're right, because Capcom couldn't give a shit about 5 anymore at this point in time. They certainly didn't give a shit about 4 anymore when 5 came out. And I think what Arxis is doing is important to look at. I think a lot of companies need to look at that and really try to emulate that, right? So I still think Capcom should put rollback into USF4 just for the hell of it, just as a nice gesture. Like an anniversary release or something like that, they'd be really sick. And again, I mean, the communities, as long as the communities are there and there's a way to play it, it's just the games never die. It's not like in the 90s and 2000s where we were running STA33S all parallel to each other. Now when one game comes out, the last one effectively ends, sinks into obscurity. No wonder players get angry about it. Yeah, you say that, but that didn't really happen either. God, at B3, when we played ST and Alpha 2, there was a lot of talk about which game was the best game. People were fighting about that all the time. And the only reason why we continued to run some of those games at EVO was because it was like ST and ST was specific. But EVO stopped running Alpha 2 and Alpha 3. Like, they didn't keep running that. They didn't keep running CVS 2. Like, ST was like one of the only ones that kept going until 2009. Then when Street Fighter 4 came out, everything went away. It didn't run anything else. Hell, at EVO 2002, the infamous, the UCLA year, Third Strike wasn't even in the lineup because the Cannons hated Third Strike. And America sucked at it, though we didn't know. And nobody was entering, nobody time, so they didn't put it in there. The Shuriken forums were all full of avatars that were like, bring back Third Strike. Like, there was this big fight to bring back Third Strike. One person was mad because Alpha 3 wasn't there. They were like, bring back Alpha 3. You know, like, we didn't keep playing those games. We dropped those games back then. There was a lot of people being mad, so it's not quite the same thing. The only reason why in the 90s and 2000s, which we call the Dark Ages, which people are like, there was no Dark Ages. Shut up. There was Dark Ages, okay? The reason why a lot of times we kept playing some of those games is because a lot of new ones weren't coming out, right? So we stuck with a lot of old games, honestly. So you know, once upon a time that was true, but these days games get competitively euthanized the moment the next installment lands. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I talked about that a little bit already over here. So I think the problem VF6 is going to run into, says Little Akiba Games, based on the leaks. Have there been leaks? Is that they might alienate an otherwise loyal fan base to try and court players that are already being well served by Tekken. Oh, no. I love the verbosity. I love the discussion over there. So, that's fair, Little Akiba Games. Yeah, I mean, there's a way for them to maintain the old stuff, but there's also ways to draw on the new players. The new players don't. It's a tough balance. It's a tough balance. And honestly, look, if anybody from Sega is listening to this right now, and you want to hire somebody to come and give some ideas, if there is a VF6 being made, and someone wants to hire me to give ideas on how to make it kind of work for both. Like, look, I'm a person who's really good at understanding how people feel about stuff, really good at empathy, and I have a lot of creative ideas. I just gave a couple of them to you for free, like late counter hit messages and, you know, on-screen displays of what throws were broken, you know, just to give information to viewers. Like the punish message in fighting games has been one of the greatest additions in fighting games. Completely. Like, I love that message, because how many times have you commentated before where we're like, was that a punish? I don't know. Did he punish him? I'm not sure. But like, now that the fact of the message is punish, and we're like, yes, that was a punish. Good stuff. You know, it's really about also just making sure the players have the information, right? The hardest thing about old fighting games is a lot of the information was hidden away because it was about the players. Once you got the information, that was fine, right? But nowadays, fighting games are about viewers. And that is what Daisuke did. That's why we had the giant counter on Guilty Gear and the combo meters and the wall breaks and stuff like that. They worked really hard on the presentation to draw people in. That's what we have to look at, right? And so if you're developing a VF6, you can keep a lot of things complex. And in fact, that might be a good thing to do. That might be one of your selling points. But then you might have to create a modern mode. You might have to create a play simple Akira and full Akira, and simple Akira literally has like half the moves, right? It just gives you like the super basic moves that you're pretty sure most Akira players need. Sorry, Little Akiba Games, you just got me saying your name here. Like most of the common moves that Akira needs, right? And then you can play the full one later on, you know, et cetera. Like you can do stuff like that. And I think there's lots of ways to guide players in, you know, good first one player modes to help people in there. And just a lot of things that a lot of people aren't thinking about with fighting games. Should they make it so that ring outs are a little harder, like Soul Calibur? Maybe, I don't know, because I mean, VF is hilarity ensues with a lot of like just like really ridiculous ring out situations, and that's actually kind of one of the funny and enjoyable parts of Virtua Fighter is some of the really janky ring out situations. But maybe that's not something that you want to do because people will get frustrated with that or something. You know, the beautiful thing about Soul Calibur is usually when you got rung out, you know, it's not necessarily your fault, because, I mean, it is your fault because you put yourself into that position. The 8-way movement is really interesting. And, you know, then that kind of ties into now just throwing when people have their back against cliffs because they're trying to 8-way run. So you can grab them. While, you know, it adds into the mind game and stuff. It's really interesting. You just saw Eileen get blasted over a fence by Jean from about 20 meters out. Oh, God. Oh, man, that's hilarious. But yeah, there's ways to do it, honestly. Do people even want to play games with ring outs anymore, or weird uneven stages like DOA? I think for DOA, yeah, because DOA is kind of designed for it, and you know, it's interesting. But you can see what happened with Tekken. Tekken 4 had some really crazy stages. Virtua Fighter 3 had uneven stages, and you had to really think about that. Like they had grooves that were like this, which let you extend combos because technically you were juggling them higher if you were going down this way, and you were juggling them lower if you were going this way up the hill, you know. But it's a little crazy and maybe a little too complex. And then also can be tough to make balanced unless you're like Tekken to make sure every stage is perfectly mirrored so that the two starting characters have no distinct advantage over the other, you know. It's a really kind of a weird situation there. But, you know, just like how people are like, man, Super Turbo and Hyper Fighting are stupid because there's random damage. And like everybody who plays those games, nobody has ever felt robbed by the random damage. Like that shit just happens. You're like, whatever. Like, what? Why did that do so much damage? And you're just like, okay, you accepted it. It was not a problem. But these days, I don't think you could get away with it as much. I don't think you can get away with it. But just having ring outs, I think if you made the ring outs a little more like difficult to achieve or a little more earned, like every wall that you could be rung out has to be broken first, and then you get rung out like a Fatal Fury 3 kind of situation. You know, that it takes a couple of hits before you can be rung out. Maybe that's something that people would accept. Maybe you just put the ring outs in there because maybe as a dev, that's just what you want. You know, you don't have to cater to, you know, the whining people who are like, ring outs are stupid. Like, you know, like you could just let the world tell them to get good, you know, honestly. But yeah, VF has a variety of stages, and I think that's kind of important as well, because obviously VF5 also has the horrifying super thin stage that everybody hates. It's just like, here, fight, wall, 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 and then you turn sideways and there's just a ring out right there. Yeah, exactly. There's just... The stage is amazing. I mean, it's amazing if you're watching because it's just violence. But again, you know, or it could even be like, let's say, a Smash Brothers type thing. Like, just let VF do its thing. But then in tournaments, like there's a tournament mode that only allows certain stages to be randomized. Right? Maybe do a randomized picker like Smash Brothers, and the scene just decides, okay, here's these stages that feel a little more fair like that, you know. Could become a tournament standard. I mean, obviously Virtua Fighter players play right now and they have to deal with taco stages and stuff. But, you know, like, who knows? You never know, right? Everything, you can do whatever you want. And that's the beautiful thing about fighting games. And what the devs can do, they can do whatever they want. It's just what you want to do, right? If you're Virtua Fighter and you want to bring in audiences, yeah, are you going to have to simplify things down? Maybe you don't have to simplify things down to the point where everybody feels like the game is dumbed down. But the other definitions of simplifying it is finding a good way to give players better steps into getting better at the game, right? Like maybe there's just a separate rank for full mode and a separate rank for cut down mode. Like, for example, you can play either mode and get up to platinum, but you can never get above platinum until you go into complex mode, right? So you can start with simple mode, you play with simple mode, but then if you get good enough at simple mode so that you get to platinum or diamond, suddenly now you can't gain any more points until you switch to full character mode. And so that encourages, you know, people to try different, you know, try the full version of the characters or whatever like that. Or maybe it doesn't even matter because maybe the simplified version is just a nerfed version because you just don't have as many moves. So you know what? If somebody just wants to play that version of the character all the way through with literally no advantage over the other one, let them. Let them, you know, like seriously, why not? Why not? And you know, it's just, that's the thing. You don't have to dumb down the game. You lower the barrier of entry, but you keep the skill ceiling up at the top. And these are the things that we can do in the game. It's not about making the game easier to play. It's about making the game easier to learn. You don't make a complex game easier for everybody. You make a complex game easier to learn the complexities. And that's really kind of all it really comes down to. People are willing to get good at complicated things, But fighting games are super intimidating, and there's nothing fun or friendly about losing 100 matches when you go on ranked. But if you help them learn, it's a different story. It's just really all it comes down to. You can make Virtua Fighter still complex if you can just help people get to that level a little bit better. And it's really all it comes down to, right? And if you put on screen things like, you should have broken this throw back, like when you fail the break the throw, it actually shows he did this throw, and you're like, oh, that's the throw, that's the direction I should have broke. Like, if you just put that on the screen, like, why not? Why don't you put that on the screen? Like, literally, what is the reason that a developer wouldn't put that on the screen? Like, I can't think of one. It'll help the viewers, it'll help the players, because now every time they see the same throw over and over again, they don't go, which way am I supposed to break that? They'll be like, oh, okay, that's the direction. Oh, God, it's that throw, it's that direction again. And if you actually now, not based on the animations, you'll be seeing on the arrows, like the guy did forward throw, down throw, forward throw. He never uses back throw. I'm never going to tech back. Like, you're developing the mind game of the game without now having to do this obtuse thing of memorizing throw animations and going into the game and trying to figure out which way the guy is throwing you, right? Like, it's just, there's just so much easy ways to make people learn fighting games by giving them the information on screen. It's really all it just comes down to, honestly. So yeah, I mean, again, going back to where this is coming from, I mean, obviously we're talking about VF here, but Strive is a wonderful game. It is in a great place. It's doing exactly what it's wanted to do. And again, you can't call it dumbed down and simple because Asuka exists. Like, clearly their goal was not to make the game, like, easy to play when they put Asuka in the game, who might be one of the most complicated fighting game characters in the world. Like I said, the way his meta has developed, he's not as complex as I feel like he was supposed to be. But, you know, you don't sit there and say the devs are trying to dumb down our fighting game, make it so anyone can win, and then put Asuka in the video game. Like, it's clear that what their goal was to destroy Exerd, destroy the past, aka try to bring in a new audience, try to eliminate a lot of the legacy knowledge here. VF is going to have a lot of legacy knowledge, but again, you don't have to necessarily, you know, you can ease people into that legacy knowledge. And, you know, you might want to do some stuff to shake it up a little bit. See, that's the thing, too, right? You know, the VF fans, you know, they might be upset if you simplify it. But if you kind of add new systems that work well, that aren't dumbing down the game, but making it easier to process and understand. If I had an example, I'd give you one, but I'd really have to, one, know VF better, and two, sit down and think about it. I mean, the thing is, out with the old is risky, but is it? Is it that risky? The weird thing is, Vampire Savior is the most popular Darkstalkers game. And if you guys don't actually know this, a lot of the characters got super reworked between Vampire Hunter and Vampire Savior. Felicia lost like 3 of her super signature moves. Victor doesn't even play the same at all, practically. Sasquatch is a completely different character between those two games. Like, they changed a lot. But people don't know that because they don't play the game. And they think that, oh, Darkstalkers just stayed the same the whole way through. Like, Vampire Hunter and Vampire Savior play nothing alike. They play nothing alike. Vampire Hunter is so much slower. And then Vampire, the original Vampire, is even slower than that. Vampire Savior is the only one that's that insane. You know? And that's the thing, right? People don't understand that games have been changing all the time. So, the Zoner character that turned into one of the craziest rushdown characters of any game in existence. Yeah, exactly. I'm not even sure which one you're talking about, because that could be Raptor or Sasquatch, to be honest with you. Yeah, but Sasquatch used to be super zoning character. He used to zone, and now he's just like rushed down of death. He had a fireball that went across the screen, and he doesn't have that anymore. You know, like, dude, like, they changed the characters so much, dude. So, you know, that's just the thing. I get it. I honestly do. If you're a classic XX Exert fan and you look at what Strive has done, it's easy to look at that and just be like, I hate this game. They ruined everything about Guilty Gear. But like I said, the game is still Guilty Gear, man. The game is still very much Guilty Gear. And if you're going to try to tell me that it's basically not a Guilty Gear game anymore, I don't even know what to tell you. Because like I said, go play Alpha 3, then Third Strike, then Street Fighter 6. I mean, when I still remember the first time I played Gutex in Street Fighter 4. He was mad because everybody else he played would jump at him and he would headbutt them and then ultra them every single time. And I fought him. He's like, man, you never jump. And that's because I came from Street Fighter 2. And everyone he fought came from Street Fighter 3. Because in Street Fighter 3, you fucking jump like a rabbit in that game because you had parries to save your ass. But, like, I came from Street Fighter 2. You just don't jump. And so he was like, wow, you never jump. And I was like, I came from 2. I don't jump in that game. And so, like, that's how different these Street Fighter games are. You know, when everyone's teaching you 5 and 6 and they're like, first thing to learn is not to jump. Dude, in Third Strike, you jump like fucking rabbits in that game because you had parries all over the place. I jumped at people all the time in Third Strike, dude. Like, dude, the games are so different from each other. They're so different. And so, like, you have to be willing to accept that. You have to be willing to accept that it might be good that Strive is not like Exert. Yeah, you don't get the world tours. Yeah, you don't get the money in the prize pool and all that stuff. Not getting new characters or anything like that. But, I mean, dude, you love your game, man. You love your game. Keep playing your game. It's a fun game. Who cares if it never gets updated? Who cares if it gets that money? Because frankly, you know, that's what you accuse all the other games, right? You're only playing Street Fighter 5 because of the money. You're only playing Street Fighter 6 because of the money. Ew, money. I play my game for love. Play your game for love then. Play your game for love. That's what we all really do in the end. Yeah, I mean, I get it if you don't feel like, if you don't like how Strive feels. But again, there's a lot of people out there who really do. Who really, really do. And this whole new slew of players that we have here with the Jonathan Tenes and the Umi shows and the Razos, Tempest NYC, Nubenheimer, you know, Red Ditto, all these people over here who are legitimately enjoying Strive and being brought into the FGC via Strive. Like, to them, this game is great. And yeah, they're going to complain about it. That's what we do. We complain about our favorite game because they want it to be better. But, you know, it's cool that they have a game that they love. Let them keep playing it. It's a good game. It is a good game. So that's all I have to say about that. That was definitely a lot longer than I intended. That was supposed to be a 10-minute video. But anyways, let's actually go ahead and call this one. Thanks, guys, for tuning in once again. I'm going to do... I hope this will be short. For those of you on YouTube, I mean, just let me know your thoughts on this conversation again. More philosophical talk from me about everything. But play the game you love, man. Just play the game you love, and it's really good. It's really good. Thank you for tuning in. For those on YouTube, please like and subscribe. The likes help a lot. The comments help a lot. And I appreciate everybody who's been supporting my content on YouTube. Love you guys so much. And you know, it also benefits to you as well, because the day that these podcasts graced your ears was the greatest day of your life. But for me,
it was Tuesday.